Hi, I'm Becky from Let's Make Geek Stuff, and this is part 3 in making Galadriel's armor from EVA foam. In this final video, I'll show you how to measure it on your model to cut it to the correct size, and we'll do those finishing touches. Let's go! Now that my front is all applied, I'm ready to add details with my foam clay. The reason I've waited till this point, as I mentioned earlier, is that foam clay just isn't as flexible as regular EVA. Here is, I'll again put up a picture of the source material, and then I'm going to be adding just a line of foam clay along here, just to bring out that detail. It won't take very much. I'm pretty new to foam clay. But I've had fun experimenting with it. But the secret is water. So I just have a cup here with just plain water and a brush. Now, if you had clay tools, I'm sure there's a tool for this. I don't have clay tools, and so I'm just using a spoon, and I'm just bringing down the edge. Of the clay. Keeping it wet so it doesn't stick. Okay. I'm just going to use my finger to blend it into the top there. Now I'm just going to work it until it's even and all the edges are all blended together. I've been working this for about 10 minutes and I have a shape that I'm pretty happy with. But if your clay skills are as bad as mine, rest assured that once this dries in 24 hours, we can sand it a little and fix some of these imperfections. Once you get both sides done, you can stop there, or you can keep adding foam clay anywhere that you would like. Foam clay is also great for filling gaps, so if you have any big gaps in your seams or anywhere, you can just fill it with foam clay and then with a wet finger even it out. If you're not using foam clay and you have big gaps in your seams, you can fill those with tub caulking, but you wouldn't do that at this stage. You would do that at the very end, right before you painted. I'm here with Ruth, who will be wearing this armor. We're at the point where we're ready to do a fitting to find out what the measurements need to be on the side and the top shoulders. So we're going to start by putting this chest piece on the model, and I want you just to, since every woman is built a little different, just slide it around to find where it feels most comfortable on you. Does that feel good?
I think so.
And now I'm going to put the back piece on. Now, in this armor, the front overlaps the back, like that. Okay, now put your arms down to hold it in place. And I'm just going to measure at the shoulder. Here, let's have you turn here. Okay. So I'm overlapping the shoulder just to see. I want the seam on the shoulder to be centered to the shoulder. I'm going to do it on both sides. So if I do it right there, how does that feel?
Fine. I can't move my arms really.
But it's like it's comfortable around the neck.
It doesn't feel uncomfortable, no.
Okay, and now I get my marker. And I'm just going to mark. I want the seam to be at the center, so I'm going to have to cut away some material from the front and the back to get the seam in the center. And I'm just going to mark that line with my marker on that side. And then I'm going to mark this side. This is where that's Now I want these two sides to just butt up against each other with no overlap. Okay, so now I have thrown some duct tape underneath. I didn't put it on top because I don't want to mar the foam surface, but I put it underneath to where I've measured it. So now I'm going to measure the side. Now on this armor, the front overlaps the back, and we're going to put some Velcro here to keep it in place. So I want the front to overlap the back by about 4 centimeters. That'll give us room for the Velcro. And then I want that seam to be right under her arm. And so I'm just going to, here, would you put this arm down to hold this side in place while I mark this side?
Yes.
Gonna line it up. So I want the center seam to be like right under her arm. So I'm gonna mark. How's that feel? Does that feel comfortable to you?
Yeah.
Like, if it's this, can you breathe?
Yes,
and
I can.
Move and stuff?
Yes, I assume I can move. I've not moved.
Okay, we don't want it
It's
to...
not like I'm not being corseted.
Because we
in.
want it loose enough so that you can have freedom of movement.
Well, and eat food and.
Yes,
Not
eat
have to
food
worry.
at con.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and draw a line down the middle. Okay, so that's what I want the top, for the top piece. Now the underneath piece, I'm gonna mark along the same line. All right. So the underneath piece I've marked here. And I want about 4 centimeters of material that will underlap there. So it looks like on Ruth here, I'm not going to need to trim the underneath one at all. I'll need to cut about 4 centimeters off of the top one to have it line up. So we're going to want this to be equal on both sides. So I'm just going to grab some tape, and I'm going to tape that into place where I marked it, and we'll make sure the other side can line up similarly. Line up. Okay. Okay, now spin. Okay, on this side. Line those up. Make sure this is in the center of your torso. Yes, yep. Okay. There. Just rotate a little. Okay. Gonna put another line where I want it to be. I'm gonna mark the underneath. Okay. So this is the underneath line. More like that. I've marked it a little crooked. So again, on this one, the underneath I'm not going to cut, but it looks like the top I'm going to be cutting about 4 centimeters off. So. Okay, so now I've taped it in place where I have marked the cuts, and we're just going to have Ruth kind of move around in it, see if it's comfortable, it's where she wants it to be. Oh, is that sword fighting? And we also have to consider that undergarments, we're going to have tassets and stuff that need to come out from this vest. So it needs to have...
and down here.
Yeah? Does it come out from under here?
Yeah, she has some.
Okay, so we need to make sure
arm
there's a little breathing room around the arms and at the waist for the rest of the
For
costume.
the underbits.
Okay. After my fitting, I'm ready to make the adjustments to this. I have drawn a line here on the side where I need to cut it. And just so that I'm sure that it's exactly the same on both sides, I cut the one that seemed like a little visibly shorter. And now I'm just going to flip it upside down. And now both sides are exactly the same. I erred on the side of making it a little looser. Once I add the Velcro, it'll be somewhat adjustable, you know, a little bit. So I'd rather make these a little more generous than too short, so. Now that I've cut these to length, I'm ready to add this collar piece. Now, in the original costume, we've seen that she has like a whole under collar that is separate from the main piece. But to give the illusion of that collar, we're gonna add these collar pieces. And so we have the 2 layers of foam right here. We're gonna glue these collar pieces to the underside layer. So that will give it the impression that she's wearing 2 layers. Then I'll be cutting off this excess. I will glue the same collar to the back here. Oh, and I forgot to mention on the collar for the front, I did do some sanding on it to curve it, just to give it a finished look. I didn't do that one on the back. This back piece is going to be pretty invisible, but you could if you wanted. And I'll cut off the overlap. Let's talk about how the front and the back are going to connect. Because a lot of cosplayers wear wigs and it's hard to get armor pieces on and off around wigs. I've designed this so it does connect at 4 points. So these shoulder hinges, not only are they accurate, this one, not only are they accurate to the costume, but this is actually how it's going to connect. I'm going to glue on half of this shoulder hinge right to the front, and then this half will have the Velcro here, and then I'll have a spot of Velcro here, and it will Velcro on both sides. So our step right now is I've established the halfway point on this hinge, and I am going to glue it in place on both sides. Just outlining where I want it to glue. The thing to be thoughtful about here is to make sure that it's lined up, that when the other piece is here, none of the hinge falls off of the foam. We're not going to put any of the Velcro on right now. We would do that after painting. But when you do, you'll just put a square of Velcro here, and then a square of Velcro on the back where it's going to Velcro in. But for now, throw a piece of blue painter's tape right there so when you paint, it keeps the foam raw, because you'll want to attach the Velcro with hot glue on raw foam, not on the paint, or the Velcro will just come right off. But I do like, you can use contact cement for Velcro, but I do actually really like hot glue. I think it gives you a really good hold for your Velcro. So. And while I'm talking about Velcro, let's go over how the sides will Velcro. So on the actual armor, the front overlaps the back like this. And we're gonna go in and do some detail work on this, but for now, so you'll have Velcro here, and then you'll put Velcro on the underside here. But for now, before you start painting, you're just gonna put some painter's tape here and painter's tape under there to keep the foam raw, so you can glue the Velcro on when the painting is done. I taped off where the Velcro goes, and I just wanted to add a little note about Velcro. When you go to the store, they sell like an industrial Velcro that's for industrial uses. You might be tempted to buy that. Do not buy that, because that Velcro is so sticky that it's stronger than the foam, and it can rip your foam. But there's also really, really cheap, like dollar store Velcro, and don't get that one either. Just get your run-of-the-mill sew-on Velcro strips. I'm gonna work on the star that goes on the chest piece. This is something that you probably will wanna paint separately and glue on when everything is done. A few options for this star would be 3D printing, do thermoplastic, like a Warbler, or the thermoplastic beads. You'd probably get a really good result. You could try the modeling foam. But if you don't have any of those resources, let me just show you a way to do it with our EVA foam. So this is the 4mm craft foam I've just traced on the star. I'm going to cut it out with scissors. I'm going to draw on some guidelines. Now to give it more of a 3D look, I want to bevel these edges. And so with my scissors, I'm going to cut off the corners, or that one edge of the sides, and I'm going to cut up to that guideline like this. Okay, so that's what I've got. Now I am going to clean up this area with my rotary tool. And then you can see those are the two ones I cleaned up, just to bring that in. There it is. I'm going to add a little heat to kind of take care of some of these little burrs, but not bad. Now there is a flower around a pearl in the center of this. I probably will make the flower leaves out of my modeling clay. And then these half pearls I found in the scrapbooking section. They're scrapbooking pearls. If you can't find these, another thing you might try are googly eyes. And we'll be using these a little later. A painted googly eye would make a great pearl look. A few last details here. I'm going to round these edges, and then I'm going to add some heat to try to flare out on both the front and the back this edge. It kind of flares out up and over the hip, so I'm just going to do a little shaping. I'm going to do the same thing to the front piece. Final detail, we're almost done. There are a few rivets on this costume, and to recreate the look of rivets, we are going to use these googly eyes. There's one here and one here, and then there are 6 on each one of these over the shoulder hinges. And also for fun, there is like a stand-up hinge on this. I might do a roll of foam clay and to make it look like a hinge. It may look funny now, but trust me, when it's painted, it will look amazing. And we're done. All ready for paint. Thanks for joining me. I won't be covering the painting of this in this tutorial. I will link below several other tutorials I've done where I've talked about the finishing, priming, and painting of EVA foam. I will be doing future tutorials on other pieces of this set of armor, so be looking for that. This pattern's available on my Etsy shop, as well as other cosplay patterns, Star Wars helmets, and a lot of different things. Give me any feedback of what projects you'd like to see next. And as always, I love making geek stuff with you.